For months, we've been reporting on the humanitarian crisis here in Portland that's left many without food and shelter during the pandemic. Many of the challenges in helping the houseless center around mental health. Today, Fox 12's Marilyn Deutsch talks to one homeless advocate who is proposing an innovative way to help those suffering from mental illness.
Blanchet House here in Old Town provides meals, clothing, and transitional housing to those living on the streets. And they've seen firsthand their clients' mental struggles. From Northwest Gleason and 3rd, the struggles are as far as the eye can see. 3 times a day, Blanchet House serves meals to these folks in the neighborhood, about 1,000 meals a day. Scott Kerman is the executive director of Blanchet House.
It's a real challenge. Trying to meet the needs of someone who's escalating because of a mental health crisis.
And Kerman says the pandemic has increased the numbers of the houseless suffering from mental illness. He says some who found themselves houseless when the pandemic began were able to get help.
If they had the means of going somewhere else or getting services or finding their way to one of the emergency shelters, they were able to do that.
But many of those still on the streets are those experiencing the very worst crises, and they cannot get help. They may be even too disruptive to stay in a shelter.
What we seem to have now in this community are sort of the people who are suffering the greatest.
Even before the pandemic, Kerman says so many of the houseless were often people who never overcame personal traumas and ended up at rock bottom. Compound that with the pandemic, and many have gotten so much worse.
There's no blame here for how they have reacted to this, that they have been living in very inhumane conditions without sufficient access to hygiene and sanitation.
The Blanchet House is a nonprofit. Kerman would like to see a coordinated partnership with government to pay for mental health teams to work at places like Blanchet House, meeting people where they are and when they are there. At Blanchet House, it would mean having a team on the sidewalk just during meal times.
I already know when I need the response. I need it here breakfast, lunch, and dinner 6 days a week.
That's better, Kerman says, than calling police or a street response team or calling anyone, really.
Calling for help, then you're waiting for the response, and depending on how long that might take, it may be too late.
Kerman envisions a job sharing program, so to speak, between helping agencies. Teams of 2 people each at Blanchet House in the morning, moving on to another agency during their hours of operation. The team tracking those in crisis all day long, not just one moment or 1 hour at a time. An opportunity to build relationships, so necessary, Kerman says, for helping the mentally ill get better.
For the people that we're serving, there are a lot of stepping stones before they're going to be able to be successful in housing.
Scott Kerman says he applauds all of the city and county's efforts to house the houseless during the pandemic, but many of the folks he sees just are not even ready to go into a shelter. They need other help first. In Portland, Marilyn Deutsch, Fox 12 Oregon.